Hi, welcome to the newest episode of Sports Talk Central. I'm your host, Adeem Mahmood, with my normal co-host Hunter, and today we're going to be talking about some NFL news, starting with the Rams trading Jalen Ramsey, some quarterback contracts being signed, the Panthers trading up for a number one overall pick, and Lamar Jackson getting a non-exclusive. So let's start with the Rams trading Jalen Ramsey. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, my first thought when I saw the trade details, indeed, that's it? Really? Like I understand Ramsey is a bit well, I wouldn't say washed, but he's not as good as he used to be. But you're telling me the best a team has to offer for an all-pro cornerback, someone who I would say is a very top 10 corner in the league still. I don't
Yeah.
think he's top three anymore. Top five, you can maybe argue, but I don't know if he's that anymore either. But top 10 for sure. And he's worth a third round pick in tight end Hunter Long, who I really don't even know who that is.
I think he went to Boston College, but I could be wrong in that one.
Yeah, that actually does sound kind of right. That's ridiculous. I understand the salary cap situation is very real. The Rams have been, they have purposeful problems with that, and I think he has 3 more years left on his contract, if I recall correctly. On
Like that, yeah.
yeah, I believe so, yeah, 3 years left on his contract, making a lot of money, but that's it. Third round pick and just a tight end, a backup tight end. I feel like they could have gotten more for him. Maybe a second in something else, maybe a second and another pick and a player. I don't think you probably could have gotten a first back for him. But like when I look at like other trades, like for example, the Chase Claypool trade, the Steelers almost got a first. They basically got another first round pick back because they have the first pick in the second round of this year's draft for the Claypool trade. He's worth that, but Jalen Ramsey isn't worth any kind of second round pick. I struggle to see what the Rams are doing with that and how there wasn't any other offers out there. But I like it for the Dolphins. Their defense gets better. They're ready to take that next step next season because the playoffs are just not good enough for them. They're going to have Tua back, hopefully, if he's not dealing with some concussions. That offense is going to be good. Defensively, they want to make some improvements. I think this makes them a better team. Those are my main thoughts on it.
I mean, one, Jalen Ramsey and a defense run by Vic Fangio. That's gonna be fun to watch, and they got some
Yes.
other players as well. Second, you know how remember the game? Remember Jenga, the game where you put all the things together, and
Yes.
the
People used to play that in college and stuff.
The Rams have had this strategy for the last few years of trying to maximize this window and trying to do what they can. And that's trading for Jared Goff, then trading Jared Goff and picks for Matthew Stafford, and then trading for Jalen Ramsey, and trading for Von Miller, and trading for Odell, and then bringing Odell Beckham. And it seems like what we're seeing with the Rams. First of all, Jalen Ramsey to the Dolphins. That's a good move for them. They did lose Byron Jones, and I did see some Dolphins fans say, "Well, we're clearing up all this space. Is it for Lamar after the draft?" Again, I don't think this move means they are out on Lamar. It's the fifth year option. They picked up the fifth-year option on Tua. Whether they go for a quarterback in next year's draft or 2 years from now, we'll see what they do there. But I think this means they're out on Lamar, and we'll get to the Lamar thing later on. But so it clearly was signifying a big move by them. This is a big move. I think what it was. There's still some other options. They still need another running back. I think that they could go out and get another. Maybe they get another tight end. Maybe they go get another corner. But they did cut Byron Jones, and this seems to be that Byron Jones replacement. So much like how you had couple years, you had Jalen Waddle drafted, then you went out and got Tyreek Hill. They had Xavier Howard. Now you add Jalen Ramsey to that group as well, with Christian Wilkins, with some of these other guys. So Vic Fangio's getting the pieces. The Dolphins are going all in. I mean, it makes sense. I mean, let's see what the Patriots do. The Bills look like Bills looked like for a while they were up there, but because they haven't had that postseason success, so let's see what happens. And obviously with Josh Allen's contract now kicking in, we'll see what. And obviously that's gonna be interesting. And obviously Jordan Poyer is a free agent for the Bills. Tremaine Edmonds is a free agent as well. Well, let's see what they do with Stephon Diggs in the future, but yeah, I mean, the Dolphins are clearly circling. If this is a Jaws metaphor, the Dolphins are clearly, if the boat is the AFC, if it's for the division, the Dolphins are circling it in, and they're getting closer and closer, and getting Jalen Ramsey is a big part of that. Now, Obviously, this all depends on Tua. If Tua's the future, if they buy into Tua, then this is a great move. If it isn't, like I said, there's Lamar, there's quarterback next year. There's now you can probably do have that flexibility. Now for the Rams, this seems like they're going to either doing a somewhat of a retool. And look, I'm going to say it now before they make any other moves. I'm going to say a sentence that we have not been able to say in a few years. The Rams have a first round pick next year. We have not heard that before. We have not been able to say that before. Now, what's interesting, Leonard Floyd out. Allen Robinson, they're allowing him to seek a trade. Matt Stafford, they want to get him out if they can. It's gonna be really hard for him to do that because of the dead cap hit. And now Jalen Ramsey's out. Seems to me, I don't think they're gonna tank, but it seems like they're gonna do somewhat of a reset. And it is interesting that they do have a first round pick. Now, granted, they did offer that up last year for Brian Burns, I believe. It was the first, like multiple first and multiple second round picks. But it is interesting that maybe they are going through a rebuild, a retool. And look, everyone was everyone was complimenting what they were doing to get a Super Bowl ring, but now you're seeing the ugliness out of it. So it is going to be really interesting. I mean, before we move on to Derek Carr and Daniel Jones, do you think that they're positioning themselves for a higher draft pick next year, getting getting a quarterback like Caleb Williams, Rattler, Drake May, and then still being able to contend, essentially retooling, not rebuilding, but then using a quarterback in next year's class to kind of speed up that process. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I think that would, definitely make sense in terms of that. I'm curious to see what they really, you know, what's going to happen with Stafford overall. Like, is he coming back next year? Is he going to get traded? I think like the Bucks have circled around him at times where they're also looking at Baker Mayfield. This is a team that really needs to stockpile, their picks back.
What
They
about the
went all.
What about the Commanders for Stafford? I don't know if they have the space for him, but
It would make sense, though. I'm wondering if they are going all in on trying to get Sam Howell, or not trying to get Sam Howell, if they want to see how Sam Howell does, I think is my thing. But that would make sense. It clears more salary off their books. They can get some picks back. This is a team that really, they just need to rebuild, I think, a bit. You got the Super Bowl. That's huge. But, you went all in for it. Now you're starting to pay the price a little bit also. So I'm curious to see what they do here.
yeah, and we're going to move on to Derek Carr and Daniel Jones. But I mean, what about what do you think the Raiders could be a place for Stafford, or do you think the Raiders are just too cash poor at this
I
point?
think they're too poor, to be honest. I don't see that. I don't think.
And then obviously, we're not putting this as a topic because this is a foregone. This is almost a foregone conclusion. Aaron Rodgers going to the Jets. Obviously, that is going to be one of the big dominoes that's going to fall. But I mean, yeah, I mean, before we get on, we're going to move on to the Derek Carr, Daniel Jones. Before we get to that one, do you think it's just foregone conclusion for Aaron Rodgers to the Jets?
It's looking that way. They've been flirting with this. It looks like for a long time now.
Right.
He was asked today. He was at an event. I think it was the IMF.
Brandon Marshall, yeah.
Brandon Marshall asked him, and he said, "It's coming soon." And he just stared at him, like he's not saying anything about it.
I can't tell if he was happy or mad, but
I don't know. The Packers, they seem like they want to move on. That's how I see it. I don't think they want anything to do with him anymore. I think they're tired of him doing this year after year. They're ready to start Jordan Love and start the process over again with, competing and all that. I do think at the end of the day, this does happen. Now, what they get in return, the Packers, probably a couple of picks, maybe a roster player.
A receiver as well. Maybe someone like Corey Davis.
That would make sense. Yep. And I think there's too much smoke where this is. I don't want to say this. There's too much smoke for this. I do think it overall it does happen.
Right. And then what are your thoughts on Daniel Jones, Derek Carr, their contracts?
Yeah. I'm happy for Derek Carr. I think he's going to succeed in New Orleans. I don't think that's that bad of a deal. The Daniel Jones one, look, it's too long. It's probably too much money, but also it's really only cash loaded for 2 years. I think that's the main thing to look at it. This is mainly a 2-year deal where all the guarantees are. If he's not good in those 2 seasons, they can kind of just cut him because the rest of that contract, you're not really owing him that much money in terms of like total guarantees and stuff. You know, they think it's going to pay off. They think that this year is not just a one-off for him. They'll have to see. I think it also works out for them because they franchise tag Saquon Barkley, and they can also work out a deal for him. So if they had not come to this deal, they would have had to choose between franchise tagging one and then letting the other one walk to free agency, which probably would not have been good. I think they probably would have franchise tagged Jones and then let Barkley walk. But they were able to get a deal done. I think at the end of the day, it's more okay than not, just because, again, a lot of the guarantees in the first couple of years, we'll have to see how he does.
Yeah, and I think one, Derek Carr signing with the Saints, that had to have been a big screw you to the Raiders. I mean, the Raiders, the Saints could have traded for him, and Derek Carr said, no, I'm not, don't bother trading, not waiving a no trade clause, and then he ultimately signs with them. Makes sense. Good stopgap quarterback. I mean, look, you go from the third or fourth best quarterback in your old division. Now you're the top. You're the best quarterback in that division by far. But yeah, with Daniel Jones, look, there are superstar quarterbacks. There are terrible quarterbacks you're just tanking for. And then there's quarterbacks in between. Like, these are your Jimmy G's. These are your, to an extent, Derek Carr as well. Maybe your Kirk Cousins. But these are guys that are good for 2-3 years, like you said. But you could get out of their contracts within 2-3 years, get a franchise quarterback. I don't think they're obviously means they're out of quarterback for this year. Maybe they go out and try to get a quarterback in next year's draft class. Maybe they wait 2 years from now. I mean, again, it's interesting seeing these teams make these moves. Not to again, this is kind of going to get into the whole Lamar Jackson thing, but it is also interesting that we do see this shift. Like the NFL and in all sports, like the trends there's always these short trends. Like the Buccaneers brought in Tom Brady, built an offense around him, and they won a Super Bowl with him. And then obviously Tom Brady's out. The Buccaneers, they are now in an ugly rebuild. The Rams went out and got Matt Stafford. They got a Super Bowl out of him. Now the Rams are in an ugly rebuild. And so it is interesting seeing. And then, by the way, in this past season, Deshaun Watson, in the games he played, did not look good. What else? Stafford with his contract extension did not look good. Russell Wilson in his contract extension, trade and contract extension, that was the complete opposite of the result from Tom Brady and the result of Matthew Stafford when he first got traded to the Rams. So it is interesting seeing how these trends do adjust and seeing how it worked before. There's a pattern that worked before, but it hasn't worked now. And last season, seeing some teams trying to replicate that strategy. Kyler Murray was the Cardinals. That contract didn't really work out so well. And so the counterbalance to that is not going for the long-term answers, but going for the short-term answers, or going for the rookie quarterbacks. And I think that's what Derek Carr and Daniel Jones is, because people are going to say, well, why didn't you go out and get why aren't you trying to pony up $250 million in guarantee for Lamar Jackson? Because the answer to that question is we don't know if that strategy works. Because a few years ago it works, last year it didn't work, so now that strategy might be shifting more towards the short-term contracts, like the short-term contracts, just to where you can get out of that contract in 2-3 years, or you go for the rookie quarterback. So just seeing, it is interesting. I think that's what my main takeaway is. Like, it's a trend in how do you approach the quarterback position. Now, one of those strategies is a rookie quarterback, and the Panthers, who were one of the contenders for Jackson, traded up for number 1 overall pick. Now, they did pay a heavy price here, so it was 2 firsts, 2 seconds, and DJ Moore. And by the way, was the news also now that they're willing to move down? Have you seen the movie? Did you see the movie Draft Day?
Yes, I have.
Yeah, so remember how they traded up, gave mortgage to their future, and then they traded back down, and they were get those picks. I feel like this is a situation like that, but my reaction to this trade is they they want they want to develop a quarterback, and it makes sense. Frank Reich is there, Josh McCown is there, Jim Caldwell is there. Having veteran quarterback developers there in key positions is going to play a big part. Um, it is interesting. This is after the combine, and you for well, first of all, this will be the third or fourth time that Frank Reich has screwed the Colts in the quarterback position. First as a head coach, and then as a head coach for the Panthers, trading up in front of the Colts because Bryce Young, C.J. Stroud, Will Levis, and Anthony Richardson are all guys they could target. Now you're certain they can get one of those guys, and I think they're going to go with Strode. Personally, Richardson's interesting.
I agree with that. I do think they're going to go with Stroud. I originally did think they were going to go Bryce Young, but then I did read, I think that there's a coach on the Panthers that's worked with Stroud before. I'm remembering
Maybe McCown. Maybe
I think I'm trying to remember. I think someone there has worked with Stroud before. I at least I think. But I do think it might be. I might be leaning towards Stroud going number one now, and I think Bryce Young will go number two to the Texans. That's probably how I'm going to see it. You know, the Anthony Richardson thing. I like him, but he's not top 5 pick material. I think he's maybe a first rounder, but I don't think he should go number one. That's how I see it.
no. So no, I think it was Josh McCown. He raved about C.J. Stroud in January. That might be, but maybe I don't know if they have another connection there, but no, I mean that's what it was. But yeah, keep continuing. Continue.
Yeah, no, I think that's really all I wanted to say. I mean, it's a big move for the Panthers. I think they're ready for their next franchise quarterback. They obviously thought they were going to find something in Sam Darnold. Nope. They thought they were going to find something in Baker Mayfield. Nope. They didn't want to go out in the free agent class because there's probably not too much out there. So they said, screw, we have the picks, we have the assets. We're going to go out and trade for the number one pick. And, I think they gave up quite a haul. They gave up, Jesus. Yeah, I'm blanking on the receiver's name, which is a joke.
DJ Moore.
DJ Moore, yeah, good Lord. Thanks. They gave up DJ Moore, who was their top wide receiver last season. That's going to be the new Bears wide receiver 1 over Chase Claypool. That's a big piece. You gave up your number 9 pick. I mean, you gave up 9th pick. You gave, I think, a first round next year. You gave up a couple other picks this season. They gave up a lot, but they must be very, very confident that their next quarterback for the next 10 to 15 plus years is there at number 1. And all I can say is you better be sure. If you screw this one up, that's going to set your franchise back, even more years. But I do think Stroud is going to be the pick. I'm leaning towards it at least. But, I also wouldn't be surprised if you see some flip-flopping with him and Bryce Young.
Yeah, and then also, I think Bryce Young is going to go. I think Bryce Young is going to go to the Texans. I just feel like that's going to be a connect there. But I mean, just going off the Bears' perspective as well. I mean, your top 3 receivers now for Justin Fields is DJ Moore, Chase Claypool, Darryl Mooney. So that's a pretty good 1, 2, and 3 right there. So, but I mean, look, the other thing is the Bears. The guy they probably wanted more than likely might be there at 9, probably. Like whether it's the edge, whether from Texas Tech, Tyree something, or you got I don't think Will Anderson there, but Jalen Carter, especially with his legal issues, he might be there at 9. So they got pieces there as well to work with. So I mean, so it's a good move for the Bears. It's a great move for the Bears. It's a risky move for the Panthers, and also like when you look at this draft class now it's gonna be certain. I think you're gonna see 3 of the quarterbacks at least picked in the top 5. I think I texted you this. I think that the order very well could be Strode. It could be Young. Actually, let me get to the Cardinals situation now at the number 3 overall pick. Could you see a team like Vegas or the Falcons or the Colts? I don't say the Colts, but like Falcons or Raiders jump up to 3 because now you got the Colts might be looking for a quarterback, and all 4 of those guys might be out in top 5.
Would be. I would not be surprised. I mean, the Falcons are weird because, they were seem like the obvious choice for Lamar Jackson. We'll get to that a little later on,
Yeah.
of course. But they seem content with Desmond Ridder, which I get it. You took him last year, but how good is he? Like, do you really think he's going to be that guy after you just released Marcus Mariota? A little skeptical about that. The Colts, you said it, they make sense. The Raiders, they make sense. I think the Cardinals, they don't really need that pick. They can get like a Will Anderson if they want. That's the thing. They easily could, but, I feel like they could also, again, trade back, get more picks. They're not in the quarterback market despite Kyler Murray being out for, I think, most of next season. I think he's going to be out for at least the first half of next season.
Yeah.
So they might be in the veteran free agent quarterback market, but they don't need to go out there and get a franchise guy. I would be looking at them pretty intently, to be honest.
Yeah, and also you got to keep in mind, Cardinals have a first time GM now, so that's so it would be a move they make, and look, they could go Will Anderson, but I understand J.J. Watt retired, I understand, but I think a better move for the Cardinals would be to trade back, and because look, teams want quarterbacks. We're gonna get into Lamar Jackson and why it is a little there's some hiccups in trading for someone like him, but if you're the Falcons, look, I think so going back to the Bears, I'll get to one thing I just thought of. The Bears, if they are good next year, they still have the extra draft picks to move up for Caleb Williams, Spencer Rattler, Drake May, those guys. Also, this is a proven year for Justin Fields, so it is also thinking down the line. But also for the Falcons, they could be looking at Desmond Ridder, saying, "Oh, he's talented and all." But here's the other thing they could be looking at him for: if they are terrible next year, guess what? They're in good position to go get a quarterback. So imagine if they get a number 1 overall pick. Well, okay, that's fine. You miss out on Lamar, or but Desmond Ridder might get you putting you in position for Rattler, could put you in position for Caleb Williams. So it is going to be that is part of the calculus there. But I do ultimately think that the Falcons will trade up. I think the Falcons could trade up. I think the Raiders. I think they'll find someone like a veteran stopgap. I don't, and then try again next year. But because it's gonna be really interesting seeing these teams, like who trades up for a quarterback and which teams hold back on it with hopes of next year, where the demand won't be as much, and the supply is gonna be greater. So it is gonna be really interesting what they do there. So we did kind of mention Lamar a ton. So basically, the Ravens put the non-exclusive tag on Lamar Jackson, which basically means that he can negotiate for a contract, but whatever contract they give him, the Ravens would have to match, would have an opportunity to match. If they don't, it's 2 first-round picks. So there are 3 scenarios here that could happen. 1, fully guaranteed contract to Lamar above Deshaun Watson's contract, above Deshaun Watson's value of 230. Ravens won't match that. They will they'll get back to 2 first-round picks. Option number 2, a team jacks up the year 1 cap hit so much that the Ravens can't match. Okay, so we'll get so that's interesting there. Apparently, so the number there is a team would have to clear 50 to 60, 70, 80 million in cap space just for Lamar. So it's not that much for everyone. It's all of that for Lamar. And then option 3, it's in the market value what the Ravens offered him, which is probably with their latest offer, probably around 205, 210 in total guarantees. Ravens would match it, and then either Lamar would have to either basically agree to the contract or play on the franchise tag. I think he would sign a long-term deal because I think that you do have that option there. But when you first heard this news, what were your thoughts, and how has that changed now?
I mean, this whole situation is just very interesting to say the least. I don't know if there's some full collusion going on, but I think something is definitely astray with how a third of the league almost at this point is just said, "Oh yeah, we're not going after him." I think the Bucks today, they're like the 7th or 8th team that said or reported to have said we're not going after him. To the Raven, I mean, that just gives the Ravens more time to extend him. But I just have a hard time believing that one team, not even one team, is going to just say, screw it, let's just try to sign him. Because that's what it's looking like right now. And a quarterback like this does not really become available very often. He's one of the best in the sport. I understand that you would have to give up a lot to sign him. You need to clear a lot of cap space. You would have to give up 2 first-round picks if the Ravens were not to match it. But, I mean, you're telling me the Falcons can't do that and they believe in Desmond Ridder? The Raiders, the Colts, some of these other teams, the Commanders, well, maybe not Commanders. It's just with how their quarterback situations are, and I understand their picks are maybe a bit more important, but the Falcons, they have a roster that's almost ready to compete now. They were in the NFC South race last season. That's not saying much because the division stinks, but the Ravens might come out of this looking a bit smarter than I originally anticipated because a lot of teams are backing out, and that's going to give them more time and more ammo to come up with a deal to sign him. I think they have until July 15th, 17th
yeah.
time. Yeah, I believe that's the date to sign him to a long-term deal, or he has to play this season on the non-exclusive tender. There are just a bunch of wild rumors going around. I mean, Jeremy Fowler even said apparently a couple of teams are telling him they don't even expect anyone to sign him to an offer sheet, which again is crazy to me. Like, not even one team is going to do this. It's, again, a quarterback like this doesn't come around very often. So I don't think there's full collusion going on, but I definitely think something is amiss, I guess.
Yeah, no. Well, here's the thing. So there's a great scene in The Princess Bride where a character always says the word inconceivable a ton. And then I can't remember the character's name, so I'm a little fuzzy on that stuff. But someone else then says to him, you use that word a ton, but you don't know what it quite means. And I do think that there's some collusion here, but here's the problem, though, with using the word collusion. One, you have to prove that there is an official document. And it is interesting that the PA, the Players Association, has sued the owners about colluding against fully guaranteed contracts. So again, I wonder if legal advice kind of advised teams to not offer fully guaranteed contracts, which would then set the PA up for another lawsuit. But then could the owners then countersue and say that, well, your first lawsuit created the legal advice that initiated the next lawsuit, so it's really your fault, that it's really your actions that caused the second lawsuit, so it's invalid. Whether they have proof or not, we don't know. All that stuff is there. But I mean, look, you have to prove collusion, you essentially have to prove that it was that. That's the reason why. You raised a good point. Like, look, I don't think teams don't want to also negotiate for the Ravens. The teams have seen the Ravens try to negotiate with Lamar for 2 years. Now, whether it's negotiating with Lamar or the Players Association, we have no idea. But you've seen a team try to do that for 2 years. And then you know what their demands are, and you think you can do that within a month, 2 months? Like that, and that's without the 2 first-round picks you got to consider. That's without the offer sheet. There's so many variables here that are in play. I mean, it is interesting. Like, remember in 2018 when Manny Machado and Bryce Harper were both free agents and they were both 26 years old? It's like, oh, well, this is rare that those two guys are there. Well, what happened? And granted, it's different sports, but what happened? Like, teams didn't want to give out 10-year deals or 13-year deals, and both of those guys signed in spring training. I don't think it'll be that drastic. I think that ultimately he doesn't get an offer, or either he doesn't get an offer or the Ravens match whatever offer, and then he signs a long-term deal. Because here's where the problem comes into play. He has no agent as well, right? And this is the other thing. He has no agent. He's represented by the Players Association. The owners know what the Players Association wants. They've also, like I said, seen with the Ravens their struggles with it, and they said, no, we're out. We don't want to deal with DeMaurice Smith. We don't want to deal with those guys. And the fact that I think part of this is also the Ravens, because also if this was the Steelers and they had to negotiate with him, and then the Steelers couldn't get a contract done, that's then it's like a big red flag. It's a big red flag. It's like, well, the Steelers are a model organization. Why couldn't, if the Steelers couldn't get it done, why do you think we can't get it done? If the Ravens can't get it done in 2 years, why do you think we can't get it done? So there are a multitude of reasons why teams don't want to negotiate with Lamar and why they may have said that. So ultimately, I think it's going to come back down to the Ravens. Now the question is, would Lamar um, hold out for money? I don't think he would. I don't think he would refuse to sign the tag. I don't think he wouldn't. I don't think he would hold out. I think he likes football way too much. And I do want. And what I do wonder is, look, we've seen again. I'm knocking on wood here. We've seen athletes scrub stuff on social media all the time. Lamar still has a bunch of Ravens stuff on social media. So, and the Ravens and Lamar have a very cordial relationship. And I think one of the things the Ravens are betting on here is this. The Ravens are carefully negotiating with Lamar. So when they say no team's going to offer you fully guaranteed, they're saying it in a kind way. They're saying it in they have good bedside manner when they say it. Other teams are not going to have that good bedside manner. They're going to say you're not worth fully guaranteed. It's going to be very corporate like. It's going to be very binary. We don't think you're worth the money. We don't think you're worth the hassle. And Lamar is being set up, and personally, I think by the Players Association here, and he's being set up by the other teams, and the Ravens are essentially orchestrating a situation where they look like the good guys, Lamar looks like the victim, and the PA looks like the puppet masters behind a string, and the other teams look like the bullies. So that is the point we do have to consider here, and I think he does sign. And whether like I said, I do think that he still has a cordial relationship. I wonder if them going with non-exclusive tag was the Ravens and Lamar coming to that agreement. And I wonder if this is one of those, the Ravens saying, look, you have I don't know, 205, 210, 5 years, 250, $210 million offer on the table. But we respect you enough to go into the open market. And I wonder if they both came to that agreement. And I wonder if Lamar would. I think Lamar is going to test the market. If he doesn't like what he gets, he's just going to sign the Ravens offer. And I think part of the complications has always been, well, I'm being advised by people saying I can get fully guaranteed. Okay, great. The Ravens are calling out Lamar on his bluff. All right, go out and open market. See if you're right. If you're not right, don't worry. We have a very good offer on the table. Part of it, the other thing is this. Lamar and the Ravens may have a cordial relationship. The Ravens and the PA, I don't know. I think the Ravens and DeMaurice Smith, I think the Ravens want to make DeMaurice Smith look really bad. Basically, they know the market. They know teams don't want to get fully guaranteed. They know that teams don't want to get fully guaranteed or jack up that year one cap hit, and you got to give up 2 first-round picks. They know this. It's not a coincidence that this was done after the combine when the Ravens were able to gauge the market. And it's either going to be the information that the Ravens got, it's going to be the information that the association got, and at the end of the day, I think it's going to be the information that the Ravens got was more truthful. And look, ultimately, the question is then going to be how bad is Lamar going to be against the union? Because people are going to say, well, he's going to side with the union. Well, the problem is the union was able to hide their agenda for the last couple of years. They were able to hide it very well. What do you think is going to happen if Lamar does go into the open market? And again, because of the non-exclusive tag, it's no more than 2 first-round picks. You would think there's far more trade value for him, and he gets no say whatsoever. And the union's going to go to him and say, "We need you to hold out." Do you think Lamar is going to go look at the union and say, "I trust you"? No. Like, do you think that's
no? No, I don't, and I don't think he would hold out either. I don't think he just looks like someone who would, to be honest. Or seems like it was with his body language.
He would have done it last year if that was.
No, I agree. I don't think he would even trust the PA there, And I think teams they're not happy with. It's funny. I think a lot of them are probably upset because of what happened with the Browns, right? They
Yeah,
traded for Deshaun Watson, and what did they sign him to?
fully
5
guaranteed.
years for 230 million, all guaranteed. And I think they're afraid that other teams are going to try to do that. But I think that's the exception, not the norm, right?
Right. And then also I do want to bring up this point though. Steve Bisciotti, there's a situation here. There's one owner here that could sign Lamar to a fully guaranteed contract and not look like the villain. And that's Steve Bisciotti, because Steve Bisciotti has also said he doesn't want to sign Lamar to fully guaranteed. But here's the thing, because of the non-exclusive tag, let's say a team offered him 210 fully guaranteed in money, and for 4 years, 210 fully guaranteed, and then Steve Bisciotti match it, and the Ravens match it. You know what Steve Bisciotti could do? Hey, it's like Steve Bisciotti could go like, "Hey, I didn't offer that contract. I just matched that contract, and another team offered that contract. Let's say it's Atlanta." It's like, okay, so you want to put? Don't be angry at me. Be angry at Atlanta because they were the ones that offered the fully guaranteed contract. I just matched it. I didn't offer it. He signed it. It's with me. We get Lamar. It's fully guaranteed. I don't. This is not a scenario that will happen, by the way. But I just wanted to bring that up because Steve Bisciotti is the only owner that could talk himself to not being the villain of a fully guaranteed contract, because he has to match. The Ravens would have to match. So there's a difference in semantics between matching a contract and offering a contract. So if a team offered fully guaranteed, that just happened to be around how much Lamar was offered a week ago on Friday, and the Ravens matched it, Steve Bisciotti could just say, "I just matched it. Someone else offered it. Blame that owner." Now, for the Falcons, I think that they didn't want to give Deshaun Watson fully guaranteed. I think that's a big reason why. But it is going to be interesting. And then also, we're just going to end the show on this note here. Ravens did hire 2 new coaches, Chuck Smith as the outside linebackers coach, and Greg Lewis as the receivers coach. So Greg Lewis was running backs coach for the Chiefs a year ago, but he was the receivers coach for the Chiefs for the last 4 years before that. So the Chiefs have had good receivers. That's a good move for them. He's a players coach. Also, Chuck Smith, outside linebackers coach. Oh, by the way, Greg Lewis was also the recipient. He was a former receiver for the Eagles and the Vikings. He did catch a pass in 2009 from Brett Favre. So if you know, there's a famous play he was a part of. He did play under Harbaugh as well. So that seems to be a good wide receiver coach hire. As for Chuck Smith, the guy's nickname is Dr. Rush. He is a pass rush specialist. Hunter, you might know some of his work with Alex Highsmith and Cam Hayward. So they learned a lot from him. Von Miller goes to him a ton. Aaron Donald kind of learned from him. So this is a big. They are basically trusting that he can help develop Owe and Ajabo. So it's going to be. And the Ravens now have 2 coaches on staff that went the untraditional route, where they were like specialists. They coached play. They weren't on a team, but they had their own facilities. They would coach players in the off season, but now you get the opportunity. So that. We'll end the show on that note. Next week we're going to talk more about some Virginia Tech basketball news. Good news is Virginia Tech women's basketball won the ACC tournament, so that's good. That's great for them.
They'll be a number 1 seed for the first time in program history, I think.
Yep, Virginia Tech.
That is a legit Final Four team. I don't know if they can beat South Carolina. I don't know if anyone can beat them, but I think they can 100% make the Final Four.
Yeah, and then obviously men's basketball. They made it to the next round. They lost to NC State. That game, just look, NC State was just shooting the lights out of the place. Yeah, and then obviously Virginia Tech baseball. They are crushing the ball. I think they've had like at least 5 or 6 innings where they've scored at least 7 runs in an inning. They've had games where they've scored 22 runs. They've lost the doubleheader yesterday against Boston College, but this is a Virginia Tech baseball team. It is not slowing down from what it was last year. But so we'll talk more about that. We'll talk more about NFL news, MLB news. It all depends on topics. Just mainly depend a lot on what are the big headlines of the day, a week. So we'll see you guys next week.
Yeah, we'll be back next week. Talk to you all soon.